بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم بذمة الإسلام أتوسل إليك، وبحرمة القرآن أعتمد عليك، وبحبي للنبي الأمي القرشي الهاشمي العربي التهامي المكي المدني، صلواتك عليه وعلى آله، أرجو زلفة لديك. فلا توحش الاستناث إيماني، ولا تجعل ثوابي ثواب من عبد سواك، فإن قوما آمنوا بألسنتهم ليحقنوا به دماءهم فأدركوا ما أملوا، وإنا آمنا بك بألسنتنا وقلوبنا لتعفو عنا فأدركنا ما أملنا، وثبت رجاءك في صدورنا، ولا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا، وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. فوعزتك لو انتهرتني ما برحت عن بابك، ولا كففت عن تملقك، لما ألهم قلبي من المعرفة بكرمك وسعة رحمتك. إلهي لا من يذهب العبد إلا إلى مولاه، وإلى من يلتجئ المخلوق إلا إلى خالقه. إلهي لو قرنتني بالأصفاد ومنعتني سيبك من بين الأشهاد، ودللت على فضائحي عيون العباد، وأمرت بي إلى النار، وحلت بيني وبين الأبرار، ما قطعت رجائي منك، ولا صرفت وجه تأميلي للعفو عنك، ولا خرج حبك من قلبي. أنا لا أنسى أياديك عندي، وسترك علي في دار الدنيا. سيدي أخرج حب الدنيا من قلبي، واجمع بيني وبين بين المصطفى وآله خيرتك من خلقك وخاتم النبيين محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. وانقلني إلى درجة التوبة إليك وعني بالبكاء على نفسي. وانقلني إلى درجة التوبة إليك وعني بالبكاء على نفسي، فقد أفنيت بالتسويف والآمال عمري، وقد نزلت منزلة العايسين من خيري، فمن يكون وأسوأ حالا مني إن أنا نقلت على مثل حالي إلى قبري ولم أمهده لرقدتي ولم أفرشه بالعمل الصالح لضجعتي. وما لي لا أبكي ولا أدري لا ما يكون مصيري، وأرى نفسي تخادعني وأيامي تخاتلني، وقد خفقت عند رأسي أجنحة الموت، فما لي لا أبكي لخروج نفسي، أبكي لظلمة قبري، أبكي لضيق لحدي، أبكي لسؤال منكر ونكير إياي، أبكي لخروجي من قبري عريانا ذليلا حاملا ثقلي على ظهري، انظروا مرة عن يميني وأخرى عن شمالي، إذ الخلائق في شأن غير شأني، لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ شأن يغنيه، وجوه يومئذ مسفرة ضاحكة مستبشرة، ووجوه يومئذ عليها غبرة ترهقها قترة وذلة. سيدي عليك معولي ومعتمدي ورجائي وتوكلي، وبرحمتك تعلقي، تصيب برحمتك من تشاء وتهدي بكرامتك من تحب. اللهم فلك الحمد على ما نقيت من شرك قلبي، ولك الحمد على بسط لساني، أفبلساني هذا الكال أشكرك أم بغاية جهدي في عملي أرضيك؟ وما قدر لساني يا ربي في جنب شكرك، وما قدر عملي في جنب نعمك وإحسانك. إلهي إن جودك بسط أملي، وشكرك قبل عملي. سيدي إليك وإليك رغبتي وإليك رهبتي وإليك تأميلي، فقد ساقني إليك أملي، وعليك يا واحدي عكفت همتي، وفيما عندك انبسطت رغبتي، ولك خالص رجائي وخوفي، وبك أنست محبتي، وإليك ألقيت بيدي، وبحبل طاعتك مددت رغبتي. يا مولاي بذكرك عاش قلبي، وبمناجاتك بردت ألم الخوف عني. فيا مولاي ويا مؤملي ويا منتهى سؤلي، وفرق بيني وبين ذنبي المانع لي من لزوم طاعتك، فإنما أسألك لقديم الرجاء فيك وعظيم الطمع منك، الذي أوجبته على نفسك من الرأفة والرحمة، فالأمر لك وحدك لا شريك لك، والخلق كلهم عبادك وفي قبضتك، وكل شيء خاضع لك، تباركت يا رب العالمين. إلهي فارحمني إذا انقطعت حجتي، وكل عن جوابك لساني، وطاش عند سؤالك يا لبي، فيا عظيما يرجى فلا تخيبني إذا اشتدت فاقتي، ولا تردني لجهلي، ولا تمنعني لقلة صبري، وأعطني لفقري وارحمني لضعفي. سيدي عليك معتمدي ومعولي، ورجائي وتوكلي، وبرحمتك تعلقي، وبفنائك أحط رحلي، وبجودك أقصد طلبتي، وبكرمك يا ربي يستفتح دعائي، ولديك أرجو فاقتي، وبغناك أجبر عيلتي، وتحت ظل عفوك قيامي، وإلى جودك وكرمك رفع بصري، وإلى معروفك أديم نظري، فلا تحرقني بالنار وأنت موضع أملي، ولا تسكنني الهاوية فإنك قرة عيني. يا سيدي لا تكذب ظني بإحسانك ومعروفك، فإنك ثقتي، ولا تحرمني ثوابك، فإنك العارف بفقري. إلهي إن كان قد دنا أجلي ولم يقربني منك عملي، فقد جعلت الاعتراف إليك بذنبي وسائل عللي. إلهي إن عفوت فمن أولى منك، إلهي إن عفوت فمن أولى منك بالعاف، وإن عذبت فمن أعدل منك في الحكم. ارحم يا ربي في هذه الدنيا غربتي، وعند الموت كربتي، وفي القبر وحدتي، وفي اللحد وحشتي، وإذا نشرت للحساب بين يديك ذل موقفي. واغفر لي ما خفي على الآدمين من عملي، وأدم لي ما به سترتني، وارحمني صريعا على الفراش تقلبني أيدي أحبتي، وتفضل علي ممدودا على المغتسل يغسلني صالح جيرتي، وتحنن علي محمولا قد تناول الأقرباء وأطراف جنازتي، وجد علي منقولا قد نزلت بك وحيدا في حفرتي، وارحم في ذلك البيت الجديد غربتي حتى لا أستأنس بغيرك. يا سيدي وكلتني إلى نفسي هلاكت، سيدي فبمن أستغيث إن لم تقلني عثرتي، وإلى من أفزع إن فقدت عنايتك في رجعتي، وإلى من ألتجئ إن لم تنفس كربتي. سيدي من لي ومن يرحمني إن لم ترحمني، وفضل من أؤمله إن عدمت فضلك يوم فاقتي، وإلى من الفرار من الذنوب إذا انقضى أجلي. سيدي لا تعذبني وأنا أرجوك، إلهي حقق رجائي وآمن خوفي، فإن كثرة ذنوبي لا أرجو لها إلا عفوك. سيدي أنا أسألك ما لا أستحق، وأنت أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة، فاغفر لي والبسني من نظرك ثوبا يغطي علي التبعات، وتغفرها لي ولا أطالب بها، إنك ذو من قديم وصفح عظيم وتجاوز كريم. إلهي أنت الذي تفيض سيبك على من لم يسألك، وعلى الجاحدين بربوبيتك، فكيف سيدي بمن سألك وأيقن أن الخلق لك والأمر إليك تباركت وتعاليت يا رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
If I can now call Zainab Taji to share her Quranic reflections today, please.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna ma'al usri yusra. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When Tehseen asked me for my verse, it didn't take me long to look for one. For this verse that I began with from Surah Inshirah has always been the one for me. From the moment when I found out about my sister's illness to the moment when I was told that my dad had suffered a major heart attack. To me, this verse embodies the life of this world and its ups and downs. We often go through multiple periods of hardships and ease. There will be tests and challenges to overcome in order to learn and grow. Imagine for a moment the challenges we face in our daily lives, whether it's striving for success in our careers, navigating relationships, coping with loss, or simply confronting the uncertainties of an ever-changing world. In each of these struggles, there's a common thread: difficulty. Now, if you're a cyclist or a runner, you'll understand when I describe that moment when you spot a daunting hill ahead. Initially daunting, but as you gear up, maintain momentum, and push through, reaching the top becomes a gratifying achievement. It's in these moments that you resonate with the verse. Consider the caterpillar's journey to becoming a butterfly. Within its confines of its cocoon, it faces the toughest task of transformation, a process that requires struggle and discomfort. Yet, it's through this very struggle that the caterpillar emerges, transformed into a creature of beauty and grace. In the same way, our own struggles have the power to shape us, to mold us into stronger and more resilient versions of ourselves. For me personally, it's been a journey to discover comfort in the midst of hardship. It began with a shift in perspective, a willingness to accept challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles. Ease, in my opinion, does not necessarily imply the absence of struggle, rather a sense of peace, the inner strength, and the resilience, no matter how fierce the climate. So whether you're a 10-year-old facing the challenges of cutting down hours from playing Fortnite, a 20-something navigating the complexities of early adulthood, or a 50-year-old reflecting on a lifetime of experiences, always remember, with difficulty comes ease. Once we form a habit, it is in these moments of hardship we remember to express gratitude, just the way we are witnessing from the people of Gaza. Despite their challenges, they are constantly praising and glorifying Allah. For myself, the simple act of standing up here is completely out of my comfort zone. But as I come to an end, I must say, I feel a sense of relief and accomplishment. Thank you for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for sharing your reflections. It was a much needed reminder for us all. So the time for learning session for the children will be taking place in the dining room now. So if children from reception to year 6 can please be dropped there by their parent or guardian and picked up again before Isha Salah at the end of the program. Those with young children who may get loud or restless during the program, we do encourage you to use the conference room. There'll be an audio streaming there so you can still follow along with the program. Just a gentle reminder again that no food or drink other than water is allowed in the chapel, so please do be mindful of that. And finally, can everyone please move forward? There's lots of space here and everyone seems to be squished at the back. So if everyone can please move forward and we can invite Shaykh Arif with a salawat. Thank you.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم وإياك نستعين الصراط المستقيم أنعمت عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So after reaching out to God, acknowledging His sovereignty, His greatness, after understanding that He prevails over all things and that there is nothing devoid of Him, after acknowledging His own state of sinfulness, and this is not only His mind thinking through concepts, you can see very clearly He is feeling what He is saying. So the feel is not generated by the words, but the words are an outcome of what He is feeling. But the brilliant way in which they are structured, the way He articulates it, and you can see, normally in du'as you do find same sections being repeated here and there. But in this one, by and large, you see a beautiful flow, a whole process that is deepening at every stage. So at one point, he is seeing God. He is viewing a world that is not devoid of God. He sees God's authority all embracing. He sees himself in there as the cause for his own downfall, his own sins, and he feels these sins. Now, I'm not here as a Shia to justify that an Imam doesn't commit sin or whatnot. Sin is what is felt within the soul in the presence of the Lofty One. I remember something can be trivial, but it feels like a mountain as a sin and transgression against God within a heart. And for another one is just a laughing matter. So you can have something very small, but it impacts you profoundly from within in accordance with our relation to God. So he is feeling this state of sinfulness, extreme sinfulness. So he comes at that point, and then he approaches God in a very emotional fashion. He turns to God and he says, I genuinely acknowledge that I have done wrong. I have no excuse whereby to justify my actions. It is true, you have ordained and you have decreed. Your decree and the destiny that you've carved out has assisted my path and my sinful ways. But in all of that, O Lord, it is not a fault of yours. It is a fault of mine. I don't have an argument against you. It is your argument against me. And at this point we are reminded of the reaction of Iblis against God. Iblis said, the way you have deceived me, God, I will deceive all of them. Because what Iblis was saying was that you knew, after having insight about my nature, you knew that I would respond in this manner. Yet you placed the snare to trap me, and now you've trapped me. But in contrast, if you were to look at Adam could have turned around to God and said, well, you have constructed me. You know that I am naive. And if I am promised an everlasting life in this blissful state, or a rank above this of the lofty ones, then obviously I will fall for the bait. You knew that. What sort of a parental God does that to his creatures? But Adam didn't. Adam's response here was that, God, I have polluted my soul. I have darkened my soul. And you have revealed to me through that process a very big deficiency within my soul, that I did not trust you and your wisdom and your judgment, but I fell for my human frailties. So you can see these two responses. Both of them are faced with the same scenario. Imam Ali offers the response that Adam is offering. He says, you, no doubt, have placed your decree, and that decree has carried me in my sinful ways. But that does not absolve me of my wrongs. Rather, it makes the blame incumbent upon me. Now, how he is seeing it and how he is feeling it, only his heart knows. But when our hearts open up to God, genuinely open up to God, we ourselves begin to see that decree and destiny was carved out in a meticulous way to awaken us to the loftier truths. And that was the function of God's decree. Here now, he comes to the point and he says, "O Lord, I have nothing to excuse me." And this is something we need to do. He said, now I very genuinely offer an apology. فَاقْبَلْ عُذْرِي وَارْحَمْ شِدَّةَ ضُرِّي. Accept my apology. I have nothing. But I'm very genuinely coming to you. And I'm apologizing to you. Now here there is congruence between what he feels and what he is saying. He's saying, I can't excuse myself. I have no justification. The Quran says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا. Human being sees well within his soul, even though he advances excuses. This thing that we do in our daily lives, justifications that we present, it penetrates so deeply within our psychology that we uphold the same interaction with God. But God, you know what he said to me. But you know what he's done to me in the past. And therefore this was my response. Imam Ali doesn't see any of those things. He doesn't want to make any excuses. Well, whatever he or she or they might have done, you are supposed to be in my presence. You are supposed to respond in accordance with what you see fit, in accordance with what I want from you. There's no excuse. So Imam Ali very genuinely comes here and he says, I have no excuse other than offering a very genuine, heartfelt apology to you. Accept my apology. Then he goes on and he says, O Lord, and this is the emotional side of the dua. He says, O Lord, will you distance the one that you have drawn close to you? Will you waste the one who you have nurtured and cared for and showered love upon? Here we are seeing his relationship not with an authority that's overwhelming, not with a master who deserves obedience. He has gone through that stage already. And he has said to God, I have failed at all these levels. Now he is working towards another relationship that is opening up from deep within his soul. He is looking at God as a parental figure. You see, this is what we need to do. We need to see God beyond his authority and his right above us and on us as a parental, caring God. That is when the nurturing process of the soul begins. Otherwise, if the God of religion is taken at face value within our private lives, there will always be a distance between us and God. There would remain no confidence in God because he is so overwhelmingly majestic. There is no recourse to him. And true, there is no recourse to God. He is of sort, La ilaha, Jalla Jalal. He is like that. But that God does not work for us at our individual, private, emotional level. So here then, he approaches God in a very different way. He sees God as a nurturing, benevolent, kind parent. As you say to the parent, will you really waste your own child? You have drawn me close to you. Will you push me away? You have nurtured me. Will you burn me now? Then he works into this dua. He says, O Lord, but you do know my tongue has uttered nothing but your name. My limbs have served you tirelessly. My forehead has fallen in prostration, adoring you. Now this is why I say it's a personal dua of Imam Ali. It was meant for him himself, because he's talking about himself. I can't say to God, that shall you burn the tongue that has eulogized you incessantly, because it hasn't. Or my forehead that has adorned the dust of humility to glorify you, it hasn't. I haven't done all of these things. Or my limbs that have been striving in your service, I haven't done any of these things. It is his dua. He means what he is saying. In his own personal capacity, he is feeling that unworthy in front of God, and now he is making his way to God at a very private level, in disclosing himself fully. Then he says, O Lord, how can that be possible? Hayhat, anta akram min an tudayya man rabbayta. You are far more noble than to waste the one that you yourself have nurtured. At other points, it says, Ma dhalika dhannu bik, walal ma'rufu min fadlik. That is a thought that is distant from you. You cannot be somebody who punishes people who have come to you. But in that, you can see a very deep emotional appeal in which he is saying to God, my tongue, my mind, my body, my forehead, everything about me has been exclusively for you. Now that I've given myself to you so fully and so totally, will you then waste me and distance me and burn me? Oh Lord, such a thing cannot be thought about you. How can I see and how can I say such a thing of you? So on the one hand, he is saying, you have authority, you can do whatever you want, I deserve whatever I get, I have no argument against you. On the other hand, he says, no, I have known you. I have certain expectations of you. Not expectations based on my right on you, but my expectations based on my understanding of you. That you are so kind and so gracious that I expect you to overlook it. It is not because I am worthy of anything, O God, but it is because you are worthier. How can you, O God, who is so kind, be thought of as somebody who will do this to his creatures? So he appeals to God in this very emotional fashion, and he opens up to God at that very emotional level and sees God as a nurturing parent. And I think this is the secret in our relationship with God. You see, had it not been for these beautiful du'as, we would have never understood how to relate to God properly. It would have become very, very difficult, because the God of the theologians is a God so removed that he cannot be approached. We will not find the God of the heart. In these supplications, what we find is that these wonderful creatures of God are opening up to God, being their authentic self. Now, if you see this segment of the dua, it is like a person who now has come to terms with his own existence. And now he's turning to God and he's saying, look, enough of the pretense. I cut it all out. I've come to this stage in my life now. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to secure any benefits for myself through lies, through pretense. I'm going to be honest with you. I need you at this point. Now look at how wonderfully he constructs the next phrases in his du'as. Yeah, beautiful. He said, Allah, the way you know me, you know how weak I am. I can't bear even the smallest tribulations that befall me on this earth. You know how I scream and how I shout. You know how I cry and run to you. You know that about me. God, you see how delicate my skin is and how frail my bones are. Do you, O God, think that I can bear the torment of hell? He very really sees hell now. It is a threat, and we need to acknowledge it. I'm going to say this tomorrow, but just today it will be a bit of an overlap. He said, who can bear that place? Who can bear that place that has been kindled through your wrath and your anger? Now, least anybody gets a wrong idea and they don't come tomorrow. In one portion, he says that I know you. You're such a Lord that within an instance you would extinguish the flames of hell and there would be no resort for anybody there. But because you have taken an oath, and the oath is binding, that you will fill it up with the adversaries and the disbelievers. Now, what is that oath? وَلَكِنْ سَبَكَتْ كَلِمَةٌ مِنِّي لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ. The Quran says, I've already passed a decree that I will fill the hell with man and jinn all together. Now, what does that oath mean? Why is it binding? Why is it going to happen? We don't know these metaphysical truths accurately. But the Imam understands them here as he is making his dua, that had you not taken that oath, you would have shut hell down. And indeed, God is one who will shut hell down. Eventually, He will shut it down. You can't expect God to keep that hell burning. مَا دَامَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ رَبِّي. Heaven and hell will persist for as long as the heavens and the earth are in place, or as long as Allah wants. He can shut it down whenever He wants, yes? And the Prophet said eventually, there's a Sufi hadith, Sufis quote this hadith, eventually God will forgive the demon, the shaitan himself. In any case, he sees this inferno and he feels it, and in his khutbah he has already said that the rank of the God conscious in terms of hell, the state of the God conscious in terms of hell, is like people who see it and the people who feel its torment. And he will explain tomorrow what levels of torment there are. But for today, he's looking at the physical torment. He said, I can't bear even a moment of pain in this world, be it physical or psychological. Oh God, how do you think I will bear the torment of hell, whose intensity knows no end, whose duration is unending? The flames engulf, the inhabitants are tossed about, the tormentors are many, the restrainers will restrain me. Oh Lord, do you imagine me to be able to bear that torment? He's not saying to Allah, think about the way he's phrasing it. He's not saying to Allah that I will not be able to bear it. He's turning the question to God. In a very parental capacity, he sees God. He says, God, you know the sort of creature you have created in me. You know how weak I am. Now, do you think I can bear any of that? You know, it's like appealing to the parent. Do you really think I can bear that? You know I can't bear it. Pardon me. But in any case, in this part of the dua, after putting his plea and apology, he comes time and again and he says to God, no, my inner being does not allow me to acknowledge that you will do such a thing. It is as if he knows that my God, there is a threat, but I know my God will not do it. I know he will not. So he is there in that balance. But if you do, then you also have a right to do so. And that reminds me of a hadith of the Blessed Prophet. It's an amazing hadith. I've heard it from the Sunni sources that the Blessed Prophet said once that I have no hope of getting into paradise on the weight of my good deeds. The only thing that will get me into paradise is the favor of God and His mercy. What that does is, it takes out this sense of eligibility from within the soul. And when you look into it deeply, the ruin of humankind, the faithful community, is this sense of eligibility. I have done this, so God will do this for me. We often find these things within our minds and the community. I've fasted, I have prayed, I have done charity, so I will be eligible for forgiveness. That eligibility is what brought Shaitan down. Think about it for a minute. He said, لَمَ كُنْ لَأَسْجُدَ I will not prostrate to the one خَلَقْتَهُ طِينًا that you have created from dust. I'm far loftier. I am eligible. I am better. You see, this thing Imam Ali is denying, but I just want to speak on that for 2 minutes that I have left. You see, when we go into eligibility thing, that's when we become discriminatory. You know, I fasted for 20 hours. That person hasn't fasted. How can you say he's also going to go to paradise? You know, you find this argument within the naive minds that the Muslims are going to go to paradise because they've been fasting for 20 hours in summer and that person hasn't fasted. So if you say God will give paradise to all, then that's not fair. I will just say what is not fair on you is that your parents were Muslims. I wish your parents were Christians. You too would have gotten into paradise without fasting. You know, you should blame your parents for taking you out in this world as a Muslim, right? But imagine a person who fasts. You like that, didn't you? Salawat. You see, the fast that we do, the prayers that we do, these are gifts from God and blessings for which we become indebted. One is that you gave the tawfiq for me to do this. Otherwise, I would not have. Two is, I have wasted the opportunity of the blessing that you gave me, because when I stand in prayer and I say, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, then my mind is supposed to be ignited into thinking how you govern the vast universe, and to take the worry out of my head about my sustenance and my insecurities, and to free me. When I say Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'een, it is supposed to make me fearless, and I can stand in front of an army of 1,000 with their swords pointed at me and their arrows released from their bows coming to me, and I say Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'een. You gave me that beautiful opportunity for which I'm indebted, and then I'm responsible for not taking the benefit of that opportunity, and I'm indebted even more. And if I've taken the opportunity, then I thank you, because in return you have liberated me through that. These ibadat are to be seen as gifts from God, not something that make us feel that we are eligible. So anyway, I'll finish with this. The Prophet would stand at nights and worship Allah. His feet would swell. His wife went to him and she said, but the verse has come in Surah Fath that Allah has forgiven you all your sins, those that have gone and those that are to come. He said, should I not be a grateful creature? Should I not be a grateful creature to God for all that He has done for me and for all that He has given me? It is here that you find the essence of what's happening. So if you ask the Blessed Prophet, well, what did God give you? He's taken everything away from you. He's put you into abject poverty. Look at your state. He will say, to be honest, He has given me His own self. Can you see that? And for that, I cannot thank Him. It is the night where Imam Ali is struck. But I want to take you through a scene that the Zakireen often mention. That Imam Ali is being carried back home. He is unable to walk. Before they approach his door, he says to the Sahaba, scatter. Let my children take me in. What he here is saying, according to our ulama, is that Zainab will not be able to bear the scene. She will not be able to contain herself. If you have a father like Imam Ali, and a daughter who is so endowed in her father, a father who is the lion of God and His messenger, and who is the protector, to see him go. So Imam Ali did not want the commotion that would occur within the house to spill out and for them to hear. Now this is the same Zainab who is so engrossed in her family. At a point she sees her brother Hassan breathing his last and trembling upon his deathbed. But we see her at a moment that is unbearable for her. She sees her brother. And I think I'll be forgiven to say this because he was the youngest son of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima, and he might have been the closest to her. He said, Zainab, look after them. Escort them back home. He bid her farewell. He began to leave. She said, Oh, Aba Abdullah, pause for a moment. Let me behold you one last time. She weeps and falls at his feet. In whose care do you leave me? My father has gone and so has my grandfather. My brother is no longer. Imam embraces her. And he said, my father, my grandfather, my brother were all better than me. If death were to spare anyone, it would have spared my grandfather. Oh Zainab, bear this loss, for your brother is to tread the path of all those who have gone before him. On this night, we find Imam Ali in a state of a lot of pain. His Sahaba come and ask questions, and he repeatedly says to them, be gentle, for your Imam does not possess the strength. The poison has penetrated his body. The Sahaba are waiting outside. But as the Sahaba cleared away, Zainab looked at her father. And when she saw that there is no one there, she went and gently placed her head upon his chest. And she could not contain herself. So she wept. As she wept, he regained consciousness. This I will say on behalf of the Dhakireen. He said, ah, my princess, what shall become of you when I am no longer? When you shall be brought back to this Kufa, and you shall call unto me, but your father will respond not. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة.
So we've had a question that's come in. What is the concept of sin that Imam Ali is talking about, and how do we relate it to ourselves? Is it just forgetting God?
So, let me just have this now. So, Imam Ali understands sin as his inadequacy when he is acknowledging God. So, for him to miss out on an opportunity to trust in God to the fullest extent that he ought to have is the greatest sin. And the same with the Prophet. So the Quran says to the Prophet, do not grieve, do not be perplexed, do not be too eager to please them. Now you see these verses in relation to the Prophet in the early phases. Later on in the Medinan phase, the tone of the Prophet, the tone of the verses changes, because the Prophet was overcoming his own inner inadequacies as he was being nurtured by God, and as he was being fully dissolved in God. So here is Imam Ali saying that at that moment when I was enraged, I feel that in there. That was a moment in which I was not revering you as you ought to be revered. At that moment in which I found anger, sorry, or disdain in my heart towards one of your creatures, I seek forgiveness for that. Basically, the sin that he is talking about is the inner state of realization of the lack of reverence for God. Now, somebody like me would commit every sin and not feel that. But somebody like Imam Ali, even if he were to say something out of turn, would feel that that was a huge transgression in the sight of God. So it's not easy to relate to until we start feeling these things. I know a student in my early days who threw an egg at the other student for him to catch. Now the other student said, "Don't throw it, I won't catch it." He still threw it, and that person did not catch it, and the egg broke. For 4 years I saw him repenting for that, because it weighed so heavily on his heart, and you could see that he was in pain, a lot of pain, for wasting that egg, and he could not forget or forgive himself. So that's what I mean by sin. I think this is what it means by sin in this context, that deep, deep feeling of transgression.
Any other questions from you?
Thank you so much for your lecture. Very, very brilliant lecture. Just wanted to ask about the slight difference in opinion between Shias and Sunnis with regards to the prophets and Imams being infallible in our things. And you briefly alluded to that in your earlier. Just wanted to see what the divergence is.
So I'm sure you are seeing the fine young people on the channel Al-Islah when they discuss how this infallibility came in and where it's coming from and whatnot. Watch that channel, it's quite good. Even though my own theories are a bit different. But the Shias, they had this notion of infallibility earlier on than the Sunnis. The Sunnis felt they were being left behind. So they themselves also adopted the infallibility of the Prophet and the protection of the Sahaba. But it was actually the way was led by the Shia. Now, it's very ambiguous. You see, we find all these nuances that were they infallible in terms of committing sin, infallible in delivering God's message, infallible in the sense of not making mistakes. But all of these are countered by the Quran. The Quran states that the prophets made mistakes. The Quran says the prophets forgot. The Quran said the prophet encountered emotional states of fear, anxiety of other than God. We said to Moses, "Don't fear, you will predominate." Yes? So the Quran says that the prophets were not infallible in terms of their emotions. They had moments in which they lost sight of God. Until the Prophet and those who believed with the Prophet, they screamed and they said, "Mata Nasrullah," when will the help of God comes? Or when they felt that we have been belied and the promise of God was false. So the prophets have felt those things. Yes? So there can be no infallibility in that way. Within the human context, there cannot be infallibility. So what we understand as a whole, the Shias and Sunnis are both, according to my humble opinion, are both wrong, like very, very wrong in accordance with the Quran. What we understand by infallibility here is the Prophet conveyed the Quran accurately. The Imams interpreted the Quran accurately in their context. Other than that, in terms of the spiritual infallibility, what we understand is that their level of God consciousness was so refined that deliberately they would not go against the best will of God. But if they were all infallible to the exact same level, then there would remain spiritually no distinction between one and the other. Yeah? That's what I understand.
Anyone else? Okay, so I have a question. What is the definition of hell / the fire / inferno that you spoke about? Or is or is spoken about in Dua Kumayl? Is it a hell of the afterlife, or is it a state of the current life we are living?
So first and foremost, the inferno of the hereafter. So it's not only within the Quran and the Islamic scripture, but obviously it's there within the Old Testament and the New Testament. And we have in the book of Enoch, obviously, that he had these visions and he saw the hell. It's just like the story of the Mi'raj that the Prophet went on to. Idris, was it? وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانَ الْعَلِيَّةِ Hazrat Idris? Yes? So Enoch or Idris was taken there, they were shown hell and everything, so it's there. The Quran talks of 6 or 7, as Imam Ghazali says in his Ahya, 7 different descriptions of hell in the Quran. Now, so there's a physical hell, and its rage also seems to be generated from within the individual. So it's a mixture of two. And that's very easy to understand actually, it's not very difficult. Now we are in this room, to the best of our knowledge, this room is here physically. But each one of us, in comparison to where they are sitting, has a different perspective of the same room. So in that way, they're not sitting in the same room. Now each one of us has a different emotional, relational relation to this room. In which case, there's an added layer of difference, how we feel about this place inside due to our references due to our relation to this place from previously. So we're in the same place, yet we are not in the same place. We are generating our experience from within as much as it is coming from outside. So hell, the inferno, seems to be, as Ibn Sina said in Isharat wa Tanbihat, is something that is generated from within. So all our habits that we have, bodily ones, after detachment from the body, the soul will crave all those things. And at the inability of procuring them, it will suffer. But similarly, if the soul is overly angry, then it will, right now, within the bodily realm, its ability to project anger is curtailed. But in the hereafter, the real status of the soul will project itself. So it will create its own inferno. Greed, anger, jealousy. And anybody who may have experienced jealousy earlier on in life, and I know it happens at a younger age, jealousy when people are competing at an older age, you know you're good for nothing anyway. So what do you have to be jealous about anyway? You know, you're barely standing and breathing. It's about time to go now. You know? But anybody who's experienced jealousy, especially young people who fall in love and things like that, or the speakers, competing against each other. I remember the days when I didn't get any attention. I still don't. But you see that is a fire in there. You actually see it's consuming you. So outer hell burns the skin. Inner hell burns the soul. And the Quran says, on that day they will be raised upon their faces crawling. And the Prophet said, you will be raised in accordance with the status of your soul. Whatever your soul is, that will be your form. So it goes from inside outside. So hell is inside outside and a physical thing. So the real hell is with us right now. I should have just said that, right? Final analysis. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. We will now just be showing a short video entitled The Orphans of Ali.
$1,400 ago, in an alley somewhere in the city of Kufa, under a dilapidated dwelling, an orphaned brother and sister lament to each other about the loss of their benefactor.
Oh brother, hunger and thirst stifle my very being. 3 days have passed, and no inquiry about our well-being.
My sister, loneliness grips me and pulls out of me my life. We have no one, and he used to make us forget our strife.
I remember when we first came here as orphans, homeless. He came that first night and told us never to be hopeless.
We thought we were alone, but he quickly took us into his embrace. He said within his heart and soul was our safe and rightful place.
At the same time, in the darkness of night, we would hear him coming. His very presence would mend my broken heart and get my soul humming.
Upon his back, for all of us, would be sacks of bread, water and dates. But what was special is he'd sit and eat with us as if we were mates.
Forget all our woes and loneliness, he'd make us with his affection. His hand upon our heads removed all the feelings of dejection.
When we'd ask him who he was and why he cared about us so much, he said, "You are the light of my eyes and Almighty God's very touch."
3 days now, my brother, and I've been waiting for a bright morning. The sun has left our lives, my brother, without even a warning.
Wait, I hear footsteps. Can it be that our father has arrived, the one of whose company and love these days we have been deprived?
It's someone, but it isn't him. Who are you? What's your work with us? We are orphans, alone, hungry, and about whom none makes a fuss.
Yes, please, leave us, for we have nothing to you we can give, for our provisions come from our friend, who helps us to live.
He has not come now for 3 days, and we are defenseless. Without his love, kindness, and attention, we are in distress.
My dears, come with us so that we may grant you your need. Your benefactor has now succumbed to what was decreed. Like you, he was a father to many orphans and destitute within this locality. He was the master of faith and the pillar of divine morality. But alas, he has passed into the realm of the immaterial, and like you, we are now orphans left to fend in the material. I am Hassan, this is my brother Hussein, and under our care you will be. Together we will comfort each other, for we all now have become the orphans of Ali.
Just a few announcements before we end. Our next program will be tomorrow, Saturday the 30th, starting with Maghrib and Iftar. Tomorrow's talk will be a continuation of the lecture series by Shaykh Arif, and after that we will be holding a Laylatul Qadr spiritual night, followed by a Quran discussion circle with Shahid Marali. A big thank you to all of you for your generous donations towards T4C so far. Following yesterday's appeal, we received donations for 2 full iftars, alhamdulillah, but we still need your help and support for 2 more days so we can have all of our iftars next week, inshallah. So we kindly request you all to donate any amount you can by card or cash at the desk at the entrance, or by PayPal or bank transfer, so that we can have all our iftars together till the end of the month. We also have some dal and rice from today that we'll be selling at the entrance as well, so if anyone would like to purchase them, you can do so there. Before we end, if we can please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumeen of tonight's sponsors and all other marhumeen. Al-Fatiha.